Whoops, having some confusion here. There we go. Let's explore how I use science to understand mindfulness and emptiness. But first, let's make sure I used science to make sure the microphone is on. And lo and behold, it is. This evening's lesson is drawn from the Facebook question: how can Buddhist concepts of consciousness, such as mindfulness and emptiness, be reconciled with scientific understanding of the brain and mind? For those who are repeat visitors, you've heard this before many times. Sing along if you know the lyrics. For those of you who've just come right now, well, welcome aboard, matey. The moment you have a specific question simply about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Your questions are always welcome. Now let's get right to it. We're going to demystify mindfulness and meditation. We're going to drag mindfulness and meditation kicking and screaming out of superstition and skullduggery. We're going to begin with mindfulness. And I feel like I'm channeling Lewis Black tonight. I don't know why, but it just feels that way. So here we go. Every time we breathe in, whether we know it or not, whether we mean to or not, we are accessing our sympathetic nervous system, which is found not within the 3-pound supercomputer between our ears, but instead in the thoracic region of our spinal cord. Our sympathetic nervous system has not evolved to support either extreme of mind blanking or active concentration. Instead, it evolved to support perception, but a special type of perception that is vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random. It's not enough that this can be verified via fMRI studies, because few of us have one of those at home. So put on your anthropologist hat for a moment, and let us consider this. Before there was Homo sapiens sapien, so going back maybe 400,000 years, maybe 600,000 years, maybe 800,000 years, when the first anthropods first climbed down out of the trees and ventured into upon the what's it called? The flatlands, the grasslands. I forgot what it's called. Anyway, there's something of the Serengeti. Before it was the Serengeti, but you know what I'm talking about. The grasslands. Let us pretend there were two anthropods, and for convenience sake, we're going to call them Arthur and Bernard. So there's Arthur, and man, he is, well, I take it back. There's Arthur, Bernard, and Carolyn. So Arthur is mind blanking. He's just walking around like he's in a stupor, and that's great, because that's how you that is exactly. It doesn't. How long does he wind up in the belly of a predator? You can time it on a stopwatch. Now let's look at Bernard. Bernard's not practicing mind blanking. He's practicing single-pointed concentration. He is enthralled with the glory of the way the sun reflects off the carapace of a ladybug, and that's all that exists for him. Sadly, he is deaf to the sounds, the paw sounds, the sounds of a predator's paws as it prepares to pounce and make of him a dinner. But then there's Carolyn, and Carolyn is neither experiencing the extreme of mind blanking and just being zombified, nor is she lost in active concentration. She is practicing the type of mindfulness that is vulnerable and passive and visceral and most of all, random. And she can hear the predator before the predator even knows it's hungry, and she's out of there. like the Roadrunner on a child's cartoon on a Saturday morning. Zoom, she's gone. We are the descendants of Carolyn who were twitchy enough to notice whatever stimuli crossed her sphere of perception and take action upon it. So now we understand that the seat of mindfulness is the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord. But wait, there's more. What about our friend Emptiness, man? I still remember the first time I read the Heart Sutra. I was expecting an explanation on how to meditate and what emptiness is. And it just began using a word it didn't bother to define: emptiness. I just about had a stroke that night. I spent decades chasing down every meditation teacher I could find until I ruthlessly acquired a working knowledge of emptiness. And after decades of practice, I mean, I got to tell you, for me, studying Buddhism was not a hobby. I have a shit ton of disabilities. I have ADHD and autism exacerbated by fetal alcohol exposure, birth trauma brain damage, CPTSD, and then finally exacerbated by myalgic encephalomyelitis. Dude, there is such a thing as autistic meltdowns. There is such a thing as ADHD meltdowns, and I spent my life trying not to be a monster. I took the pills the doctors had me take. That didn't work. I saw psychologists. That didn't work. I explored spirituality as a form of practical meditation because I just didn't want to be a monster. I also didn't want to be the monster that was modeled for me by the abusive parents and step-parents who raised me. And so I pursued a visceral, practical mastery of Buddhism, keenly motivated not to be horrible. And so for me, studying emptiness wasn't enough to just win a debate, to win a monastic debate, or to master literature. For me, it had to translate into meditation, into my everyday life, so I could deal with the soul-rending intensity of traumatic emotions caused not only by my history, but by my overlapping disabilities. And having spent the majority of my adult life annoying the fuck out of every meditation teacher I saw, not because I delighted in being a shit disturber, just because my body is a bullshit detector. And if a pat answer doesn't give me great results, then I will keep at it like a dog with a bone until I find useful results. How annoying am I? I'm so annoying. I've been asked to leave cults. So, after a lifetime of study and practice and hounding meditation teachers of many nationalities, Tibetan, teachers of the Tibetan tradition and Thai tradition and Chinese tradition and Japanese tradition and the like. So the UN approach to studying Buddhism, and I found that all languages have a figurative component. Now this might be a star-spangled no duh. However, whether you look at the things that through a Taoist lens of yin and yang, or whether you look at things through a Buddhist lens of the path of the Buddha and the path of his wicked cousin Devadatta, there are people on the path of yang or Devadatta who think it's a wonderful thing to be rigid and fearful and controlling and elitist and cryptic and competitive and cruel. And it should not come as a great surprise that the more rigid we are, the more literal we respond to the written word and the spoken word. Who can forget the tale of the tween who insisted God's name was actually jealous, and that no, that was not a metaphor. So, those who approach emptiness literally find themselves stuck in one of two extremes. The extreme of superstitious, blind faith, or the trap of the skullduggery of pseudo-intellectualism, where people sincerely believe they need a PhD in Eastern studies to become a Buddha. Someone better tell the Buddha, because in one of his most popular discourses, or at least one of the most popular discourses attributed to the Buddha, whether he was real or archetypical, is known as the Satipatthana Sutta. And within it, the second to the last passage, the penultimate passage, if you want to use a winning answer in Scrabble, describes that full enlightenment can be mastered in less than 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. Guys, I don't care how fast you type, you cannot get a PhD in 7 days. Therefore, it can be reasoned that the literal path that requires great skullduggery is not what the Buddha had in mind. Every true meditation master I've worked with has ensured me that it is metaphoric, and that the key to understanding it is ensconced, hidden, woven within the 7 enlightenment factors. But let's cut through that and stick with science. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are accessing our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lower lumbar region of the spinal cord as well as the tippy top of the cervical region. Now, these two illustrations, this one here and this one here, were created by a lovely artist, but the artist took some poetic license. These aren't perfect drawings, but they're close enough for government work. So, what have we learned so far? When we breathe in, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system, we are wired to notice. Yeah, no duh, we already spoke about that. What happens when we breathe out? Well, this parasympathetic nervous system is wired for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Now, how does that relate to emptiness? This is it. We're getting very close. First, we're going to explain it literally, then figuratively. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel less tangible. That's it. What? You feel ripped off? You feel that you could have had something more profound from perhaps a fortune cookie? Well, since all complex life form on this big blue planet have evolved to think symbolically, let us sprinkle some figurative language upon this diatribe and try it again. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever it is that we noticed during our previous inhalation can now begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as, that's you can tell it's a simile, as a vast, empty void. Now, any good English teacher will remind us that a simile is only as useful as it is relatable. Therefore, we must ask, what is a real-world example? Don't quote particle physics. I don't have a cyclotron. Hey, is that a cyclotron in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Since none of us have a cyclotron, we need a practical, down-earth example of a non-graspable vast empty void. How about this? the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although can be tantalizing to the eye, is rather non-graspable to the hand. That's it. Mystery solved. Emptiness is a metaphor for the visceral experience of non-graspability that is as close as your next relaxing exhalation. That's it. That's it. Now that I have bounced around like a fleshy muppet, I gotta tell you, I look forward to chanting and meditating with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome. Oopsie, I skipped a bit. Let's try that again. Of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent more than 8 hours a day, every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you wouldn't have to. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. The name for this text is inspired by a TED Talk when an anthropologist insisted that although we are technologically more superior to our Paleolithic ancestors, emotionally, we're not. We are not as happy. And so I thought, how could a prelingual hominid meditate? And that is exactly what we're going to explore. But first, I think it would be Jim Dandy if together as a team we chanted this evening's excerpt of Yongjie Xuan Jui's Song of Enlightenment, one of the most popular shastras in the world of Zen. Please chant with me. So we're going to chant, I'm going to explain, and then we're going to chant together, and I'm going to explain. So, let's chant. Seeing what is real but no persons or things, they instantly quench the fires of hell. Explanation. Although inhalation could perceive persons and things, the relaxation of exhalation could release them. That is what frees us from the tyranny of karma, real or imagined. Let's chant together. Meanwhile, those who deceive others with lies spend kalpas having their tongues pulled out. Ironically, while the truth of perception and release liberates us from the hell, real or imagined, the harm generated by bad teachers pales in contrast to the harm they create for themselves. For the two truths of conventional perception and ultimate release are crucial. Having chanted this evening's excerpt, you know what? I'll do that later. Okay. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Whether we call it Sati, Pasadi, Zen, Proto-Zen, Cham, Dhyana, Mahamudra, Mahasandhi, Ati-Yoga, Dzogchen, or Trekcho, it's all just mindfulness and meditation. Approximately 100 years before the advent of the Buddha, real or archetypical, Lao Tzu is said to have collected or composed the 81 poems of the Tao Te Ching. Within the covers of the book, we learn of the three treasures. Lao Tzu explained the three treasures of the Tao as being simplicity, patience, and compassion. A number of centuries later, Ancestor Wu redefined them as simply being Jing, or body, Qi, or breath, and Shen, or mind. So we're going to explore the easiest form of meditation through that lens. As we notice our body inhaling, we could silently and mentally recite, sitting tall, thus reminding our body to generate a vertical traction between our tush and our head. During our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the three-syllable verb, relax. So I'm going to do that for 16 rounds. You might only do it for 8 to 12 rounds before I'm done. Why? Because I'm talking. And because I'm talking, I'm breathing faster. Now I'm going to count my 16 rounds upon the creases and tips of my four fingers of my left hand. I'm going to advance my left thumb during each inhalation. If you want, you're welcome to follow along with me so that you could easily learn this technique through mimicry. We're going to shift gears from three-syllable exercises down to just one-syllable exercise. Allow me to remind you of that which is painfully obvious. The inhalation and the exhalation is the qi, or the breath. Using self-talk such as the word tall, the adjective tall, or the verb ease, is using our mind to direct our body. Mind is Shen, body is Jing. So these are the three treasures of the Tao. Armed with just these three things, our mind and our body and our breath, we can meditate, we can master the Buddha's path in a remarkably short period of time. If you've just joined, welcome aboard. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or their application, please do not wait till the end. Strike while the iron is hot and immediately type your question in the chat window. My only request is twofold. Type as soon as the question occurs to you, but be really specific, really detailed, because although I am many things, a mind reader is not one of them. Let's practice for the next 8 to 16 rounds. Some people gaze, some people close their eyes tightly, some people relax their eyes, some people gaze straight ahead at the horizon, others gaze at the sky, others at the earth. Listen to your body, do what works for you. I shall check for questions approximately once every 8 minutes or so. So if it feels like I'm taking a long time to get back to you, please do not take it personal. By acclimating to this one syllable exercise, it could be said that we have climbed to contemplative cruising altitude. And as such, together as a team, we can meditate as transformatively as General Leia Organa on Ajahn Class under the guidance of Luke Skywalker. What if enlightenment was nothing mystical? What if enlightenment was simply a metaphor for not only the practice but the mastery of the Buddha's Eightfold Path? What do we do when we're just innocently sitting here, breathing and relaxing, and all of a sudden we are assailed with painful emotions or intentions or thoughts or memories or imaginings? It's simple. As we breathe in, we cannot help but notice them vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly. It's going to happen whether we want to or not. As we relax into our exhalation, we will find ourselves processing them. Sometimes rapidly, sometimes slowly, sometimes dramatically, sometimes subtly. We don't have to believe. We can simply sit and experience, and breathe, and relax, and watch. Enlightenment is not the absence of pain. It's the ability to process pain. Let us seal this evening's practice by chanting this evening's excerpt from the Song of Enlightenment. Together, let's chant. Seeing what is real but no persons, all things, they instantly quench the fires of hell. Quick explanation. Although inhalation could perceive persons and things, the relaxation of exhalation could release them. That is what frees us from the tyranny of karma, be it real or imagined. Please chant with me. Meanwhile, those who deceive others with lies spend kalpas having their tongues pulled out. This is a disturbing metaphor. Let's explore its meaning. Ironically, while the truth of perception and release liberates us from hell, real or imagined, the harm generated by bad teachers pales in contrast to the harm they create for themselves. For the true truths of conventional perception and ultimate release are crucial. Oops, I think I forgot to push the right button. That's on me, guys. I apologize. Let's see if I can't remedy that. Together, seeing what is real but no persons, all things, they instantly quench the fires of hell. Meanwhile, those who deceive others with lies spend kalpas having their tongues pulled out. Yes, that is a grisly passage, is it not? If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 and just about 11 hours, I look forward to returning to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.